Hi, my name is Maritza Sanchez, and I'm a Ph.D. student in material science and engineering. Currently ended my 6th year, and I do research on materials for extreme environments, so materials that can withstand very high temperatures, different types of energies. So I synthesize these materials and I test them for certain applications in extreme environments. I grew up in California, in a smallish city called Fontana. It's about 50 to 60 miles east of Los Angeles. And so growing up was a little bit difficult. I am a Hispanic first generation student in school. So my first language was Spanish, and I started first grade in Fontana. So it was very different trying to get adjusted to the culture of speaking the language in English, and then also the different types of people that I was meeting that might have been a little bit different from what I was used to growing up. And so that was a little bit hard. But regardless, my parents, they always were very strong and strict about education. So I think that really helped me in trying to focus in my academics and try to do well in school. And because I think Spanish was my first language, I kind of gravitated more towards math because it just seemed easier, because math is the same in Spanish or English. So I think I understood it a lot better than trying to take English classes and history and that kind of stuff. And so I think since very early on, I kind of just gravitated towards math. I did really well in math, and I kept that throughout going into high school and beyond in college, which I think kind of contributed to me being an engineer was the fact that I really like math and I really like science. So I just continued doing that because it all made sense to me, even as a small child. But yeah, growing up was nice. I have a big Hispanic family. I have over 60 plus cousins. And so we would always travel to Mexico and spend Christmas with giant family reunions, which was really nice because I still got connected to my culture, and then visiting family members in the US too. So it was always family oriented too, which was really nice. And so even when I went into college, that first year was a little bit rough because I didn't realize just how much family-centered I was. So I, being a teenager trying to go and get the college experience, I was I really want to go far away and have the whole college experience, live in a dorm and do all these things. But then when I got there, I got really sad because I was oh man, I really miss my parents and my family. I didn't realize that every Sunday we would always go out to eat and spend together. And so being there, it felt a little bit isolating. But, trying to find a new community in college and stuff to keep that sense of family and having people there for you to help you out, even if you are far away from your family. I was in the dark a lot when I was applying to college. There wasn't a lot of, in terms of my family, there wasn't a lot of people who were there to kind of tell me what the process was like when I should be thinking about what I want to study, where do I want to apply, and stuff like that. So when I was in, I think, middle school, I did join the AVID program, which kind of helps prepare you for college. But even then, our school was a little bit more low resource. So it wasn't we had these great experience of traveling to all of these colleges to see them and see what they're like and what their campus life is like. So it was just in general, think about college. And then they kind of introduce you to those careers that we all hear about, being a doctor or being a teacher or something like that. So I feel there was still so much more out there that I didn't know. And so the reason why I knew that I should be applying to college was based on the group of friends that I had in high school. So I tried to because my parents really pushed the importance of education and doing well in your classes, I always tried to have a group of friends around me who were, very intelligent, who pushed me to be better and to do well in my classes. And so because of them, I had that exposure to understand that I should be applying to colleges and stuff. So even then, when I did apply to colleges, I feel I only applied to maybe 4 or 5 schools, and they were mostly all in California and they were like University of California system, so UC schools, which in retrospect now, I could have definitely expanded my range and what like the opportunities that I had to go to other places, maybe like the Cal State system, maybe out of state. But, I was always told that out of state was so expensive, so don't do that, But, there's a lot of opportunities out there like having scholarships and stuff that I just didn't know at the time that would have helped me like make that decision as well. So the application process, it was nice because I did have teachers who like looked at my application materials. So that was really helpful. But in terms of like the selection process, what school should I apply to? What program should I apply to? It was really difficult. So when I did start, I didn't know I wanted to do engineering because I had no idea what that was. So I had applied to all of these universities as a psychology major because I was a peer counselor at my high school and I thought, oh, wow, this is awesome. I want to be a psychologist for the rest of my life. And then it wasn't till like my high school math teacher sat down with me and told me like, hey, you're like one of my top students in math. Have you considered a career maybe in engineering? And I was just like, what's that? So he like sat down with me, and he had originally started as an engineering major in college before he became a teacher. So he told me what his classes were like, what it entailed to be an engineer, what kinds of engineering were out there and stuff. So it was really helpful to have that conversation with him and for him to kind of show me and expose me to that, because that completely changed my career path. And so, that from there, I made the decision that this sounded really cool. I was happy to be doing like math and science all the time. And so when I went to college, I decided that I was going to change my major from psychology because all of the programs I applied to were psychology. So I had to go through that transition of changing. So that was a whole nother challenge on its own to get to college and then try to be changing your major throughout the first 2 years and stuff. And so like I also have like a very unique story because I started off at UC Santa Barbara, again, trying to change my major. And UC Santa Barbara is a very competitive school for engineering. And they have 2 different colleges. So I was in one college for psychology, and I had to make the complete switch into the College of Engineering. And so that was difficult as is. But the majority of my physics class, which were like 300 people lectures, were trying to just switch into engineering. So it was very competitive, too, to even be a student at UC Santa Barbara trying to get into the major. So when it came down to the end of my second year, I did the application process, and they only accepted 3 students that year, and they were all about 4.0 students. So I did not have a 4.0, so I wasn't accepted into the program. So I had to make a decision on whether I wanted to stay at UC Santa Barbara and do a different major, or if I wanted to leave the university, go somewhere else, and pursue engineering, which ended up being the latter. So I did leave Santa Barbara and I went to California State University, Los Angeles. And that decision was really hard too, I think, because a lot of people kind of looked down upon the transition from a UC to a Cal State, which in the moment I didn't know. So like people telling me like, why are you leaving Santa Barbara? Like that's such a great university. It made me feel like I was making a mistake trying to pursue my career somewhere else. But in the end, it was an amazing opportunity. I got to Cal State LA. My GPA increased so much from being at Cal State LA because I just felt like I was getting a lot of like the strong relationships with my professors, the support that I needed from them. My classes were a lot smaller. They were a lot more specific. There was a lot more students who looked like me, who had very similar upbringings to me. So it was really easy to make friends there and connect with them. And then also, I feel like because my GPA was better, because I was doing so well in my classes, that just opened up so many doors for me to like be able to get into like research opportunities, take on like more of technical experiences. And so from there, I just like ran with it. And I did so many different types of research experiences, both at Cal State LA and outside of Cal State LA. So summers I would travel and do research for a whole summer somewhere else. And that was like really nice because I think it set me up really well for applying to graduate school, which otherwise I don't think I would have been, as prepared or as knowledgeable when going through the application process for grad school and what grad school I should choose, what program I should choose, and then what exactly did I want to focus on in my research. I actually had a lot of friends who did go into industry. It is very common when you major in engineering to kind of just do the bachelor's or maybe do a master's program and then work in industry because it is very design focused and, you have already a lot of the skills that you need for industry to be able to do those projects. For me, I think it was the freedom I had in terms of like my creativity. And so when I was a part of research projects as an undergraduate, I just felt like I was always growing and I always learned and I was always able to contribute, my own ideas to the project. And so there was a lot of like wiggle room for like, we can do this instead or we can try this, which I really liked. I like that freedom. I don't think I do well under like very strict like, project like steps, So for me, like having that flexibility to be able to just like do what I like and contribute to the project with my own ideas, I think that was the biggest thing. I get bored really easily, like very bluntly. So like being a part of these projects, like I never got bored. So that was really nice. And I wanted to be a part of something like that. And so that's why I kind of chose graduate school. I felt like I needed to learn more. And I love learning. So I wanted to be in a place where it allowed me to do that. And then I also wanted to like contribute to these kinds of projects and not kind of be in a job position where, it was very routine. And so that, for me, was like one of the biggest contributors to choosing to go to graduate school and do the Ph.D. I still think, even at this point, I still have a lot to learn. So, like, I think at every step that I get in terms of my career, I just realize how much I don't know, and I want to, like, learn more about that. So, even now, like, I'm trying to, so, like, my career goal is to be a faculty member and be able to still, do some research, but also focus on the teaching side. But still, that will allow me to still be learning, not just, like, in terms of my own research, but also learning from my students and doing all of that growth academically as well. So I think that's like a mission for me, I guess, to always be learning, like a life goal, to always be learning and be in a place where it's challenging me to like keep growing as a scholar and as a person. So yeah, that's kind of why I chose to go to graduate school. Our PhD programs are most of the time, almost 100% of the time funded. So a lot of students don't know this, and I definitely did not know this before, I got to college, was that if I did want to ever pursue a doctorate, especially in the STEM fields, those are funded. So your tuition is paid for, and you also get paid. It's like a job from the research that you do, either through different types of sources. It could be fellowships, which are very similar to scholarships. It could be through teaching assistantship, so you're teaching a course and you're getting paid for that. So you're still being funded while also doing your research. It could be a lot of different things that your advisor might be funding you. So a lot of different things that allow you to be funded, but it is a funded program. So, this can change for a lot of people, like, the fact that now they know that it is a funded program, this is something that I could consider because I know it's not going to break me financially. In terms of like the schedule, you come in usually as your first year, which you can come in straight out of the bachelor's, especially for engineering fields. You don't need a master's to get to the PhD. So it's not this very like strategic like step by step that you need to take. So I came in straight from the bachelor's into the PhD. And then your first couple of years are usually you taking courses that are requirements. It's a lot less courses than you would as an undergraduate student or even a course-based master's. And they're very specific to the field that you're studying. And then you usually take either a written exam or some kind of oral exam at the end of your second year that will allow you to obtain the master's if you don't have one already. So you kind of get it along the way. And then after that, like you usually start research your first, second year, but at a very like low intensity. And then once you start to finish up your classes, you dedicate most of your time into the lab. Or if you are someone who's more computational, then, a lot of stuff on the computer. And so you focus on the research for the last couple of years. Traditionally, doctorates take maybe 4 to 6 years. But again, that's very specific on the program. It's very specific on the advisor that you have. But that's kind of what it looks like. Throughout this, you also do a couple examinations. One is the proposal of your project to a committee of faculty members who, give you feedback based on that proposal. And then at the end, before graduating, you defend that proposal based on the experiments that you conducted or the simulations that you ran in front of that same committee. And they kind of give you feedback on that as well. So that's generally how the PhD program is laid out. And then the big milestones that you have to reach throughout the program in order to graduate with the doctorate. The general field is material science and engineering. The good thing about material science and engineering is that it's very broad, so it can be applied literally anywhere. We see materials everywhere in the world. So you can think of materials in a biomedical sense. So when we're thinking about technology that we use in hospitals, you can think about it in terms of aerospace, so planes that fly in the sky, or even space exploration, so some of the rockets that we see going into space. And you can think about it for different types of areas. So that's the really nice part. My specific area focuses more on aerospace type applications and energy applications. And so I look at a very specific type of material, which is called ceramics. Generally, we divide and categorize materials into 4 different types, which is metals, so we all see that in the world. Polymers, which are plastics, like an example is like a plastic bottle where you drink water. Ceramics, which in our everyday life we think of maybe as the coffee mug that you drink your coffee out of. And then composites, which are a combination of these 3 other types of materials. So mine specifically focus on ceramic materials. And the very nice thing about ceramic materials is that they are high temperature materials in general, which is again why we use it for a coffee mug for our coffee, because we have hot coffee. We don't want to put that in, a plastic container. Want to use something that is not going to, undergo a chemical reaction or melt or anything like that when we expose it to these high heats. The ones I look at are even higher temperature. So we make very specific compositions utilizing the periodic table of elements to create new materials that can withstand very high melting temperatures, typically above 2,000 degrees Celsius. And those materials are very special because, you can utilize them to help advance technology in certain fields. So we can make faster planes. We can make we can utilize different forms of energy where before we didn't have materials that can withstand, these different types of energies. And we can make different types of rockets that will allow us to go into different environments within space. And so this is kind of what my research focuses on. There's a lot of different things that you can do to manipulate materials to change the way that they behave at the larger scale. And so we look at these different things and how we can change maybe the size of the particles that we're looking at, the shape of the particles that we're looking at, and then see how that overall changes the behavior of the material in terms of its mechanical properties or its thermal properties and stuff like that to make more efficient materials overall for these applications. One of the places where I found the most community that significantly contributed to all of my successes as an undergraduate student and also as a graduate student now has been the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, which is an organization that is focused upon trying to allow Hispanic students to thrive in these fields and be successful and get to their professional careers. But it's a very opening and welcoming community, so it's open to anybody. You don't have to be Hispanic. But what I really loved about this organization was at any level that you are, even pre-college, if you're a high school student, they do a lot of different types of events and programming that allow you to be at whatever stage you are and prepare you well in advance for you to be able to be successful in these fields. And so as an undergraduate student, I definitely took advantage of, first of all, building the community, finding friends in my classes who I can connect with, setting up study groups. They had a lot of different types of academic development things going on. So trying to help us get good GPAs, do well in our classes. They also had the professional development sense of it, so attending professional conferences, networking with industry professionals, also, creating resumes, setting up for interviews, all of these skills that you don't know you need until you're there trying to get a job. And so they prepare you well in advance with this from experts who, recruiters who do this all the time, who always interview or check resumes. So they're providing you the feedback for your stuff so that it is top notch and really great. And then there's also the social aspect. So, we do have a life outside of school and outside of our careers, which is also very important. So definitely setting that up so that we have, social events, or we have things that contribute to mental health and all of these things. So I found that through this organization, I had everything I needed to kind of help me be in a good state and help me stay doing well in my classes and then setting me up for a career. And so as a grad student, I feel like I've kind of turned my role from getting to giving. And so I have contributed a lot to being now a mentor instead of a mentee to a lot of students. I've pushed for a lot of programming and initiatives to kind of help students prepare for graduate school or even think about applying to graduate school so that they can hold these very decision-making positions within these companies and stuff because they have a higher degree, because they are experts in their field. And I've also kind of helped with one of the subgroups called SHPTinas, which specifically focuses on being a double minority in the STEM field. So not only a Hispanic, but also a woman, because women are also underrepresented in the engineering fields. And so specifically focusing on things that are very relevant to being a double minority in the field. So for me, I think there was a lot of things that I needed going through my entire college career that I felt weren't there. And, going through all these struggles, for me, it's always been important to not just obtain your own successes and do all these great things, but do all these great things and have all these successes so that other people can build on that. And so I can do all these amazing things, but it doesn't really matter unless I'm setting the platform for somebody else to take it and run with it, or, to get even better recognitions and all of these things. And so especially for someone who comes from an underrepresented background, not seeing a lot of people who look like me in terms of my classmates, which is getting better and I'm really excited. But that takes time, and it takes people contributing to that change and doing that. And that's kind of what I want to do. And then the representation just gets worse as you go up the field, up the hierarchy. So when you go from undergrad to graduate school, representation drops. When you go from graduate school to academia, representation drops. And so the fact that I've slowly been trying to reach all of these stages and being that representation for other students is really important to me. And so this is kind of why I wanted to stay in academia, and I wanted to be in a university that's very student-focused to do all these things, because I feel like that's where I have that's where I can contribute the most change and touch the most lives. Because for me, it really is all about trying to make it better and easier for, the generation that follows after me, because diversity enhances these fields. If I think back to myself and what advice I would give myself when I was younger, it definitely be, be proactive about your education, your career. There was a lot of times where I was afraid to ask for help. I was afraid to just even ask someone hey, do you have this opportunity available? I just felt like I wasn't in a state where I could do that. And so because of my fear, I didn't ask for help and I didn't ask for those opportunities. I didn't seek those opportunities. And so that once I started doing that, it just completely changed my life. And so I feel like if I would have started that a lot earlier on as an undergraduate, there would have been a lot of different things that would have happened for the better in terms of like my college career and even getting to graduate school.